Big Questions.
How can I hear from God? Welcome to Big Questions. Welcome back to Big Questions, a part of the show where we ask big questions. Today, we're joined by Jacob from Brightline. Say hello, Jacob from Brightline.
Jacob from Brightline.
Excellent, you nailed that. Today, we're asking the question, how can I hear from God? So, Jacob, have you ever heard from God, and how can you hear from God? There must be so many ways to answer this question.
Yeah, for sure. I like that you said that, so many ways to answer this question. I think because there is so many ways. I mean, you know, I've got a dog called Kira.
She's the best.
She is beautiful. She's a rough collie, she's super fluffy, and we go for walks like at least 2 or 3 hours a day. And I think we so much in life put God into a box, which is so strange because God is completely outside the box. God created the box. God, you know what I mean? Like He is everywhere, He is everything, He is the creator of the universe. And we can always just say, oh, you have to do these certain things. But you know, when I'm walking Kira, my dog, it's like, you know, God can speak to you through the way the wind blows through the trees. God can speak to you through the way a frog jumps into the pond that you're walking past. Like God can, you know, speak directly in an audible voice. He can speak to you through the Bible, which, you know, one of my favorite parts is in the New Testament where it says, you know, God became flesh. You know, the Word became flesh and moved into the neighborhood. Yeah. And it's, you know, the Word of God, it's a living, breathing thing. So that Bible you open up, that was written thousands of years ago, He can speak to you through that. It may be like a verse you've read 5 times, 10 times, 100 times, but for some reason, this time you're reading it now, it jumps out to you. It's like, I don't know, it's like that specific part has been highlighted and that's what you see. You know, you're watching a movie, you're listening to a song and a certain lyric, a certain part of a movie really just speaks to you. I think there are so many different ways, but we sometimes turn God into a human construct and it's like, no. It needs to be X, Y, and Z, but God, I think, is so much bigger than that and He speaks to us in so many different ways. Yeah,
you're right. I think that's really cool. And I think what I love about the Bible is that it says we have God living within us, or He dwells within us, however you want to phrase it. And I always think if the creator of the universe wants to speak to you, He's going to know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like He speaks our language, and it's always great. So what's like one example of like the weirdest thing God's ever, like the weirdest example of God speaking to you through just something so trivial?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. I mean, one of my favorite times, which is, it's not as strange, but like one of my favorite times of God ever speaking to me was like, it's one of the only times I've ever heard like the audible voice of God. And we were doing something and I was, you know, in front of like a big group of people and I was sort of just going through a bit of turmoil in my head and God just like, it was almost like, I don't know, you're like a movie when like everything slows down. You're like still going in normal time, but everything around you is going in slow motion. It was like that. And then God just says to me, He's like, you are my son, with whom I'm well pleased. And it was just like, oh, shoot, that's amazing. Like, it's not just like Jesus who we talk about is obviously God's son, but it's like, oh, I'm His child as well. Like you watching, like you're His kid as well, someone who He cares about so much.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah,
so what kind of stuff does God say to us when He speaks to us through like random moments like that? What kind of things can He say to us to encourage us? Or
He can say so many different things. I think He can say, I think God speaks in love. Like God is love. God speaks through love. You know, His entire being is just, it's really cheesy, but He's just love. Like He's a big heart, like a big heart emoji. That's God. He's love. And you know, and so He wants to speak to you and encourage you. And you know, me who's gone. I mean, we've all gone through trials and tribulations. We've all gone through things, and I think God is always there. Like, you can do this. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the biggest things. He's always like, oh, you've fallen, have you? Cool. Well, let me pick you back up. Or like, oh, you're struggling with this thing. Well, let me hold your hand through this. Like, you're going through this thing. Let me help you. And he can speak to like, oh, remember, I'm peace. So do you need to feel peace? Well, come and spend some time with me. Like, you're feeling lost, you're feeling broken. Well, come and spend some time with me. And maybe it won't happen immediately. It's not just like a magical pill, like the red pill or the blue pill, and you take it and everything changes. You suddenly wake up from the Matrix. It's not that. It's weird reference. Hello, 2002. It's not that, but it's like, it sometimes it's gradual. Sometimes it's like, oh, I have to like choose to go, God, what are you saying to me? Because I think, you know, the world is so noisy. What do you do when you first wake up in the morning? And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, what's happening on Insta?
Yeah, that's where I go as well.
Literally, what's happening on Twitter? Like, oh, Donald Trump said what? Like, you know, well, he's not on Twitter anymore, but like, that's like the first thing you do. But so we're filling our mind with noise all the time. But what would happen if we stepped outside of that? Then maybe we'd hear God more. Because I think he is speaking, but are we listening?
Yeah.
Is a big thing.
That's a really, really good challenge to end on. So thank you, Jacob, for coming along.
Thanks for having
me. If you
me.
are struggling to hear from God, remember he can speak to you in so many different ways. Just sit and ask him, Lord, how are you going to speak to me today? And keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. It can be in any way at all. It could be through song lyrics, could be through the Bible, could be through prayer, could be through, like Jacob said, walking a dog and just seeing something really amazing that God has made. Think about it and ask God, and be open to any way that God can speak to you. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.